In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to remove a high gain device and replace it with a 1.2 gig high gain device. You can use a drill with a 1/2 inch socket, or you can use a regular manual socket set, again 1/2 inch. For sake of speed, it's best to use the drill. You open up the amplifier. You can see basically this is an old high gain dual device, Gain Maker, Scientific Atlanta. The power supply is here as well. We will be replacing these two components. So the first thing that you want to do is essentially make note of where everything is. In particular, the fuses, or in this case the shunts. So you can see that you have an input shunt and you have an output shunt on the main output. This amplifier has 3 outputs. There's a main, an auxiliary 1, and auxiliary 2. So essentially 3 outputs. And in this case it's configured so that all 3 outputs are active. And the power is coming in on the input side and the power is leaving on the main side. There are no shunts on the aux1 or aux2. You want to take your cell phone and open up the timestamp application. We want to take a before picture. We already entered the information. In this case, this amplifier number is, it's going to be this one right here. It's going to be WT04018 and the tag is A1. That's already preloaded into our application. So we're going to take a picture of that. And this is for documentation purposes, but also at the same time, it's good to have a picture of the before in case, after you've changed the module, in case you have any difficulties remembering exactly where the shunts need to be. You want to take a picture of the before, this way in case you run into any issues with remembering where all the shunts are and the signal directors, etc. You'll want to have that picture. Okay? So the next step is to take a flat-headed screwdriver, and there are 4 screws on this module, one right here, and you want to take some extra turns. These are captive screws. There's another one over here. Another one right by the signal director. Okay. You want to pull the power just in case. This way there'll be no shorts. You want to remove the power pack. And you do that again with a flat-headed screwdriver. There are 4 captive screws holding down this power supply. Again, take some extra turns. You want to make sure that the screw is out all the way. There's a little tab right here holding down the connector. So you want to push it down with a flat-headed screwdriver and just pull it out. At that point, you can remove the wire, set your power pack on the side. Lift the amplifier out. A lot of times, this cover comes apart and will sit there. When you go to install your new amplifier, it will not fit properly. So make sure before you put in your new amplifier that you notice if there's anything left behind. You'll notice that there's 4 connectors here, and you're going to line the amplifier with those connectors. Okay? It's just a matter of dropping it in and making sure that it's nice and tight. You're going to take a Phillips screw head right now, and again, it also has 4 screws. There's the first one right above the reverse auxiliary pad. You want to make sure that they're nice and tight. And there's another one here right by the reverse equalizer. Another one here right by the reverse auxiliary 1 in pad. And then right below the AGC pad, there's another screw to tighten down. So at this point, the next thing that we're going to do is install the new power pack. You'll notice it's an ATX 1.2 gigahertz power pack. It basically sits exactly in the same position the old one was. You want to clean out any debris that might be here. Sometimes the little plastic pieces fall out and they get stuck underneath here, and you want to make sure that there's no debris there because you want the power pack to sit in perfectly. Okay? In this case, you're going to use a flathead screwdriver. Again, captive screws. Start screwing it down. What I recommend you do is you don't tighten it all the way because it will warp. So just basically make them snug. It's almost like you change an automobile tire. You want to do it in a star pattern. This way you'll ensure that it sits in nice and snug and it doesn't warp inside the chassis. Okay? So once they're nice and snug, at that point you want to tighten them all the way. Just give it a nice little turn, just to make sure it's nice and tight. You want to do that because this power pack does generate a little bit of heat, and it needs to be snug inside the chassis so that the heat dissipates throughout the chassis. Okay? At this point, you're going to take your connector, and once again, it has this little tab on it on top here, and you want to make sure that you first of all align it, and you'll hear a snap. That's your guarantee that it's in nice and tight. You want to make sure it's in all the way, because it may work when you're testing it and then closing it up, but then over time, if it's not connected down all the way, it'll vibrate loose and cause an outage. So you can start dressing up the wire. And what works pretty good is if you use 2 thumbs to basically open this plastic retainer and just snuggle fit that in here. Okay. So again, having the old module is very helpful because remember where the positions were of the fuses. The picture that you took will allow you to understand exactly where those fuses need to be on the new amplifier. What's left to do too is install our signal director. Now in the old amplifier, you'd notice that this was a DC 8 with a through. And it's important to understand exactly where that value is. In this case, it's showing that the 8, the down leg of this signal director, is in the aux2 position. So that's very important. Remove the old one, and on your amplifier, find where the aux2 position and align that number, the 8, with the aux2 position. Okay? The other thing that you have to remember is, because there's an 8 down leg here on the aux2 position, we're going to have to place an equal value pad here in the aux2 position. Had this 8 been in the aux1 position, then you would basically remove this reverse pad in the aux1 and place an 8 value to match that number. Okay? But in this case, it was in the aux2 position. So we're going to get an 8 pad, and we're going to remove the pad that's in there now, reverse aux2, and put an 8. Again, that's to make sure that we match those values. Okay, now we're ready to test the amplifier. So what do we need to test the amplifier? Some basic tools. You need a pen, you need a precision screwdriver, and you're going to need an amp sheet. This is for documentation purposes. You're going to need your Viavi meter. So let's get started. So we're going to plug in our Viavi meter on the input section right here. So this is the forward in main input. We're going to connect our probe there. We're going to come to our Viavi meter, and then we're going to hit the quick check expert. It's going to take a few seconds here for it to initialize. Okay, so we're going to record these two values on our amp sheet. And again, the number for this particular amplifier, you would write it down right here. This is tag A1. Okay, the amp number is WT 04512. The amp type, it's a high gain device. The tech name in our situation is CDG, and we're going to put today's date on there. It's going to be 12/10/22. And again, we're going to record on the input side. It says input, it's spelled wrong, but we are going to record the high channel. Again, you can see in this case the high channel is at 12.6 dB. So we're going to record 12.6 dB. On the low channel, it's 15.6 dB. Okay? So now that we've recorded our input level, we're ready to test the forward output level. And again, recall that this amplifier has 3 outputs. Okay, so we're going to have to make 3 different measurements. We always start, we take our probe and we place it in the main output forward test point. Okay, and we leave it right there. We're going to look at our AGC switch. You can see right there, it is in position 3 right now. To make adjustments, we need to move this using our precision screwdriver. We're going to move it to position number 1. Okay? Then we're going to come over to our meter, and we're going to look at what's going on here. So in this particular case, we have a 1.2.3 dB tilt. As you recall, we need to have an 8 dB of tilt. Okay? So we come over here and we look at our input section. So everything in blue, that's our input. So if you scroll over, you'll see the forward in. These are the two components that dictate our forward level and our forward tilt. Okay, so this equalizer needs to be removed. All right. And we're going to install another equalizer. And you'll notice these values on the equalizer, you want to face them up. This is how this gets inserted. And you don't want to force it. You just basically want to guide it in there. And you'll feel when it goes in, and then it snaps in, and then you push it down all the way. Okay? So let's see how we did. Let's come over to our meter, and you can see, there you go. We're right where we need to be, right at that 8 dB, anywhere between 7.8 to 8.3 is spot on where we need to be. So now that we've changed our forward equalizer, let's see exactly what kind of tilt that we have here. We come over to the meter, and look at that. It's nearly perfect. It needs to be at 8 dB, 8.1, 8.2, that's perfectly fine. The next set of levels that we need to look at, though, is the forward output. So you'll recall that we need 34 dB on the low channel and about 41, 42 on the high. In this case, we're way too high. So we need to take a look at our pad. Again, this is the forward pad that we need to look at. We need to obviously bring this up. There's a 0 in there right now. You come over and you have to do some basic math. So in order to get to a 34, we need to add 6 dB of padding. Okay, so we'll get a 6 pad ready. And we'll remove the 0, put in a 6. Let's come over here and see what we've got. And that's really close, right? We're right where we need to be, 34-ish. Okay, and about 42 on the high end there. So the next step you want to take is you want to come back to the switch. Remember, we set it to 1 to test. And we take our precision screwdriver and we're going to move it to 3 now. And what that does is that puts this in automatic gain control. And automatic gain control is important for the temperature variations. So as it gets colder, as it gets warmer, this amplifier will adjust itself and keep that perfect tilt and forward output level that you set. Okay, so let's come back and look at the meter. Oh, look at that. So it dropped a little bit, right? So how do we fix that? So we need to raise that by 2 dB-ish, more or less. And you want to come back to the amplifier, and right below the reverse aux 1 pad, you have this potentiometer right here called ATX gain. Okay, you want to use your precision screwdriver, okay, very small, and you want to place it inside that potentiometer. And you're probably going to need to feel around a little bit in there, and you'll see it when it actually pops in there. Okay, and you're going to make small adjustments. You're going to turn this ever so slightly. So let's go look at our meter. So as I turn that potentiometer on the ATX gain, again, we want to have a perfect 34 dB out, or as close as we can get it. So we're turning the potentiometer ever so slightly, and there we have our 34 and 42 on the high. That's where we need to be. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to be plus or minus a point something, but that's basically where you want it to be. Okay, so now you've established your forward tilt and forward level on the main. All right, you want to come back to your amp card, and even though this says main input, it's actually main output. Okay, so ignore that. And you want to jot down the values. In this case, the high end is at 42.1 and the low is at 34.0. All right. The next thing we want to do is test the other output legs, because all these legs are active. So the aux1, you're going to come up here and you're going to insert it on the forward test point of the aux1. You're going to look at your levels. 34.6 on the low, 40.4.5 on the high end, and you're going to record these values right here. So in this case, the high end's at 40.5 and the low end's at 32.7. And you want to come back to the amplifier, remove your probe. Now you want to do the aux2 leg. This is the forward test point for the aux2 leg right here. Okay. Again, same deal. You want to come over to the meter and you want to see the values. Now you'll notice that these values are significantly lower than the main and the aux1, and that's because we have the signal director, and the signal director is dropping the aux2 leg by 8 dB. So that's why you see the differences in values. Okay. Again, note the value, and we're going to place it on the amp card. So this is the aux2 output leg over here, and we're going to jot down 33.1 on the high and 25.0 on the low end. Okay, so now your forward is all established. What we need to do right now is set up the return. So we move our probe back to the forward out, and it says forward out and a reverse injection. Okay, so on the main leg, that's where you want to install your probe. I'm going to come over to your Viavi meter, hit the home button, and we're going to hit DOCSIS Expert. And this is going to take a few seconds to initialize, but what it's doing is it's basically acting as a cable modem. It's registering itself with the CMTS back in the head end, and what we want to establish right now is anywhere from 37 to 38 transmit on the return. So you'll notice as the meter does its test, the value is going to pop up here. And again, the value that we want is anywhere from 37 to a 38 dB MV. So you'll see right now we're at 32.8, and that's not good. So we need to up it at least 5 more dB in order to establish the perfect transmit level. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, go back to the amplifier, and you'll notice right next to the forward in, reverse out, you have the reverse equalizer and the reverse output pad. Okay, these are the two components that basically drive the reverse level. Again, we'll notice that the transmit right now is at 32.8. We need to up it by 5 more dB. So we look at the pad that's there right now. It's a 2. So we're going to remove it and place a 7 in its place. Okay, let's see how we did. So the meter, it's best to actually stop the test and then restart it. So we're going to start it again, and it's going to go through its measurement cycle once more time. And if we did our job properly, we should see anywhere from 37 to 38 pop up right in there. It takes a few seconds. And there you go. We're right in the middle, 37.5 dBmV. That's perfect. Okay? So we want to document that. So we go right under here where it says reverse telemetry level. We want to document 37.5. We want to note what the equalizer was on the reverse and the pad. In this case, we have a 4 equalizer and a 7 pad. So we're going to register that here. It's a 7 pad and a 4.0 equalizer. Okay. Now that we've established our return, again we want to hit the home button. And what's left to do is the one check expert. This is the final piece of documentation and the final test that you have to make in order to ensure that this amplifier is working properly. So we'll wait for it to initialize. And you'll see right here, it asks for a job ID. The job ID will be the number of the amplifier that we just worked on. And in this case, it's WT04512. Okay? So we're going to hit New Job. Hit right there. Clear all that out. Okay. So capital WT, and then we hit the numbers 0, 4, 5. Oops. 0, 4, 5, 1, 2, and then hit the enter. And then you hit start. And what this is going to do, it's going to take a series of measurements. It's going to look at the forward levels and also give you another DOCSIS return check. This will take several seconds, possibly a minute. You can see it's already building. It's registering all the forward levels. It's looking for any impairments. You'll notice that on the downstream side we're nearly 100%. And there you go. Perfectly green across the screen, so we have no impairments. Now it's doing a return check. You can see right now it's at 13%, ranging with the CMTS. And you just got to be patient. It's got to go through its cycle. There you go, the max transmit still at 37.5, just like we set it. Perfect. The hard part's waiting. But while you're doing that, there's some documentation you need here. So it requires that you put in the input pad EQ and the interstage EQ and pad. So let's look at that. So again, on the forward section, on the forward in, that's your forward EQ and that's your forward pad. In this case we have a 16.5 EQ and a 6 pad. So we jot that down. 16.5 EQ and a 6 pad. And we go over to the interstage, and the interstage is basically right next to the signal director. You want to record the EQ, in this case it's a 12, and a 2.5 pad. Okay. So we'll place that right here. Our pad is 2.5 and our equalizer is 12.0. Let's come over and see if the meter is done making its measurements, and it has. So at that point you want to hit the save button and you go back and hit the job ID. This is the job ID that we want. We hit that and then we hit save, and it's saving the data to StratusSync. So this is the final piece of documentation. What's left to do basically is now removing your cord. You want to place the amp card in the amp, open up the timestamp amp, and you want to take a picture of the entire thing. Okay? The module, the new power pack, and that amp card. And that's it. And this gets documented. Alright? You want to then take the card, fold it, place it, tuck it nice and neatly away. Close your amplifier, making sure that again no cords are getting pinched. And this has a closing sequence, so you'll see that there's a number 1 like right in the middle right there, so that's the first one you want to do. And again, it's like changing a tire. You want to do it in a star pattern. There's 1. Right below it is 2. And we come back up here, and there's 3. To the other side, there's 4. Over here is 5. And number 6. And there you go. That's how you change a high gain device.